Yo, the kid's official sliding on the instrumental. Nordic combos, twist your mental like forbidden.
Peace to the public and power to the people.
What up? It's Love Day. Unofficially, I'm showing love today on Pod, alright? And this is the space where the vulnerable are powerful and where the most gangster thing you could do is serve. The All the Way Live podcast.
Every single week, except last week, me and my brother Miles dedicate ourselves to come here to give you all that carefully curated content for your cranium. I'm almost to the point that I think we shouldn't even call this a podcast, because it is so much more, man. It is so much more than just a podcast. This right here is an intentional space of information, of creativity, of impact. We do this weekly, and we do it for the purpose of being a space where people can come, feel re-energized, get that good positive energy to go about their day, to tackle whatever challenges is happening. I know times is tough. We're all working hard. I see it on you. You working hard as hell too.
Man, you see it on me. It done took all the color from our wardrobes. We came blacked out. Didn't have time to pick out no colors. No fly stuff. Shout out to the YouTube audience, man. We are your humble servants. We are honored to be in this space to join you in conversation. I love what my brother said. You heard it here first. This is just All the Way Live. We dropping the podcast because it's more than that. You feel me? But this space means so much to me, and it means so much to me to be joined by my brother, who is the reason that Exeter is in the building, the reason that Johannesburg, Josie is always in the building, South Africa is in the building, and who brings the perspective to this podcast of an international, a world traveler. So I just always appreciate you being here with us. Can't leave out my boy Hassan. Shout out to the producer on the boards. Another big reason Exeter is in the building. And on this side, you know what's going on. Chicago is in the building. This podcast is recorded on stolen land. This land was cared for by the Potawatomi people, the Council of the Three Fires, and as somebody who belongs to Chicago, as somebody who cares deeply for this space and what happens to this space, it's important to remember what happened in this space, to acknowledge this land that we're on, to acknowledge what it means to be here, to work here, to live here, to grow here, to love here. And that's how we lift up love for indigenous people the world over. We lift up love between black and brown people the world over. And that's how you know the intro's over. Let's get into the show.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all the way live though? You heard?
Like my brother Miles has said, this over here is more than just a place where we come and talk. This is a place of activism. This is a place of being able to make sure we highlight people that are out there doing that dope creative work, that dope impact work. And this week ain't no different. Miles is a community organizer and an activist. I, myself, like to consider myself the same thing too. And we dedicate our life to being able to help the communities that we serve, to the people within those communities, and highlighting people that are doing the same thing in a super dope way. This week, we're bringing to y'all the Goody Room. The Goody Room, man. The Goody Room is some super dope collective of artists, DJs, specifically from the UK. My brother George, my brother Rory, my brother Ollie. Super dope dudes who, over COVID, came up with this super dope concept on being able to showcase a lot of their DJ talents and the people within their DJing community. And this is what they've been able to pull together. It's one of the reasons why I think this is so dope, is because when you see, very much like how we start a lot of our things, it's just best friends hanging out together, deciding that, yo, this is some super dope stuff that I'd like to be able to do, and then watch it take off organically. So shout out to all the three boys at the Goody Room, man. What y'all doing for your cities, what you guys are doing for your community, what you guys are doing for your talent is nothing short of inspiring.
Absolutely. And when you told me there was a dope collective that I needed to check out, I was like, dope, I'm all in. And then you said like the Goody Room, and I was like, I've been knowing about Goody Mob for years. You're not putting me on anything new. But when I actually dove into what this actually is, a lot of it resonated with me, right? Especially as you pointed out, the tangible friendship, you know, the camaraderie that's a part of the collective, the vibe, the music, of course, you know, you especially, but maybe the audience don't know that I'm in baby DJ mode. I'm slowly gathering my musical collection and stashing away a little bit of cash for some equipment, because I love music. I get captured in it, carried away by it. So I love spinning records when I get the opportunity. I think our producer dabbles a little bit too. So there's a lot here that I think resonated with us as a production team and as a show. And it's amazing to be able to big up the fam, to big up the people who are giving us life with their art. So in the ways that, you know, we hope people appreciate our show and what we bring in terms of art and music. It's also dope to be able to point out the goodie room, almost at the goodie mob again, the goodie room as another space to go and check out. So we ain't selfish with it, you know. Every single person that's under this voice right now, go check them out as well. You know what I mean? We building collectives over here.
And you saying Goody Mob is not too far removed from the type of music that I keep getting blessed every time I'm in their presence. I'm getting super incredible hip hop, man. These boys have such a deep knowledge of music, all the way from Zeppelin all the way to Goody Mob, you know, and everything that's within that spectrum. If anything else, man, I think it's super important to be able to show what it looks like when folks just take that first step in saying, let's just do something because we love it. Forget the difficulty it might be, but doing something out of the love of your heart and seeing where that goes. A similar initiative that Mia Miles has started has now gone on to feed 10 million mouths through the Mandula Foundation, spurring from that same sort of instinct of being able to be like, yo, we're best friends. We bond over this the same passion. Let's just put something together and see what happens. And now these boys have thousands of followers on their Instagram page. Like my boy Miles said, go check them out. Do I count as a DJ if all I make is sex playlists on Apple Music?
You count as a curator for sure. You're definitely a content curator. That's what they call the folks that make the Spotify playlist, right? In the Apple Music joints, right? So I would put you in that category. I hesitate to even. I had to clarify myself as baby DJ mode because there's a lot of elements to DJing, beat matching, transitions, right? Like knowing the BPMs of all your music and looping them in and out. So I think we got to get you some equipment too before we can truly call ourselves DJs. But it's really dope. And another thing that you said that really like just struck a chord with me was that this collective formed over COVID. I think a lot of people had a little bit of extra time to explore their creative side during the pandemic. And as we get back to our new normal, it might be difficult. It might be hard to reintegrate your regular 9-to-5 with your other creative priorities. But I just want to encourage everybody out there to keep at it. You know, carve out that time, keep doing those creative pursuits that fulfilled you, that got you through the pandemic, and prioritize that. Because I don't think it should only be during a worldwide crisis that people get to explore those parts of themselves. So hold on to that if you can. That's my 2 cents.
A pandemic passion doesn't have to end as a pandemic passion. We've tried to do the show a few times over the years and then actually started taking it seriously over the pandemic. And here we are, 84 episodes in, still rocking. Shout out to our SoundCloud family because that's where y'all are rocking with us the hardest. Shout out to our YouTube audience because y'all love that recommended and review portion that we have. But we give you more than just recommending and reviewing music. We also dive into the intellectual side of things.
Yes, we give you the regular dude perspective on all the irregularities we're seeing in the news, trying to make sense of the headlines. And the last few weeks, it's been a lot of just being here to breathe, you know, being here to de-stress, to decompress, and to try and break down and process all the heaviness, all the weirdness, all the wildness that we're seeing all over the place. And for sure, we got some more of that for y'all today. Now this one, I've been watching closely. All right, for a couple of reasons. One, my shorty, my lady, somebody I care very deeply about, lives in the UK. So the reign of Boris Johnson has been stressful, to say the least. Right? I've also been paying quite a bit of attention because Mr. Boris Johnson has been referred to as Britain Trump. Right? So as I try and navigate, as I try and understand how to respond to an icon with political momentum that I think is carrying us in a very dangerous direction, it was really dope to have a comparable personality across the pond. So as the Brexit of Boris Johnson commences, I'm all ears and all eyes. Zoe, what's your perspective on this joint?
I see what you did there with the Brexit of Boris. I see what you did there. That's how you know my brother definitely does research for this show. And to fill everybody in specifically, what we're speaking about is UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has stepped down on July 7th following days of high-profile government resignations and calls from fellow Conservative Party members to quit. Johnson has been he's been a conflicting figure within the UK within the UK office. Like Miles has said, there's been a lot of connections with him to Trump. Now, there's the obvious relatability to Trump. One, he's a white man. Two, he's got funny hair. Three, doesn't say the most intelligent things at times. So off of those three things, there is comparison. But I think it's a little bit deeper than just what the eye sees, because even very much so like what we had. Damn, look at the picture our producer pulls up.
Hey man, he's demonstrating what you pointed out, man. He's got some weird stuff going on with his hair for sure.
So even that element of it adds to a bit of the quirkiness that has essentially that has been very prevalent in his tenure within the UK, right? And so following days, you just saw days of just the top levels of senior officials within his parliament stepping down, right? And quitting, and some being fired as well, in almost a very epic implosion, finally leading to him to say, hey, I'm out. And that's what's happening right now. I have a theory, my brother.
Let me hear.
Which is that between the UK and you see what's happening in the US, granted, a lot of places in the world right now are going through their own reckoning of sorts, but these particular countries, the US, the land in which the US is built on, like my brother says every week, the violence done to the people of that land is inseparable from the violence we see in the country today, in the city today. And that's exactly what's happening in the UK. The history of the UK is one of a very long line of people being taken advantage of theft, of wars, of death, and seemingly that does not exist when it comes to the history that is being taught to the people of the UK. Case in point, when you look at the last four out of the last five members of parliament within the UK, over half of them have not made it to their final term.
Wow.
This speaks exactly. So this speaks more than just a Boris Johnson issue. I think Boris Johnson characterizes a lot of what the UK hates to see within themselves, but I think it's a bit bigger issue, and I think it really is, man, that there's always going to be a counter effect to things that even happened maybe 50, 60, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you connected that to the history. That's why it's so important to know that, to understand that. These patterns, right? If we don't check out our history, we're doomed to repeat it. And I think that's why this moment is one that I'm studying, right? Like nose to paper for sure. Because I think, as you said, there are definitely differences between these two people. Boris Johnson certainly has a different level of comfort among the upper echelon of UK society than Trump is. Trump's always been kind of the outlier, kind of been looked at as the outsider, even amongst the moneyed folks, right? So, but I think in a very similar way, they've shown how a government can melt down, right? When you have a leader at the helm who is wielding their power without a certain level of thoughtfulness, without a certain level of respect for tradition or for political opponents or for the intelligence of the media or for the general will of the people. And so when I look at what's happening here, I definitely like I'm encouraged by the reaction of the other MPs, right? Like 60 of the ministers, like just people within his administration, from cabinet level ministers to aides to assistants, even a couple, just staff members just left because it shows that whether it's happening out of conscience or whether it's happening out of trying to save face to, as like Boris Johnson represents a sinking ship, there's a line there that I think is being recognized that I'm worried won't be recognized in the U.S. And mainly the difference is because there's such a large base of average everyday voters that support Trump that aren't going to detach from him for a different political angle in the ways that some of the ministers have detached from Boris Johnson. And so as I look at this, I hope that we can see some type of swing back from Trump in the way that hopefully we're seeing a swing back from Boris Johnson. But I think that there are some things that have been unlocked that can't be undone, specifically with the distrust sown into the media and any basis of checking facts. I think Trump has done a serious number on our ability to have a conversation based around anything we agree about across the aisle politically.
That distrust of media that you speak about is not just reserved to Americans. The people in the UK also feel the same way too. And when you understand how the UK media in specific is how it's run by by the royal family, and the tools that they use and the alliances that media houses have to govern the royal family, a lot of things become evident. Even with Meghan Markle, we understood that the media had a very specific intention in how they were treating her, and she fought against it and even sued them. Even Johnny Depp has sued the media in the UK. Over 50% of the people in the UK say that they don't trust the media. I think the number is closer to 60%. So it does seem that the traditional methods of how we've been getting information, a la this media source, people are not necessarily trusting. And that's been something that has at times worked towards Boris Johnson's advantage, right? Being able to play off of the media. So this quirkiness that he presents almost came about as a breath of fresh air from Theresa May, who was a predecessor who was notoriously considered to be robotic, monotonous, and unfamiliar. When asked what is her favorite pastime as a child, she said, "Oh, what's the most mischievous thing she's done as a child?" She said, "Running through a field that she wasn't allowed to." And that is like, I guess. And so when you see Boris Johnson come about the scene, they calling him Boris, and he was running on almost a similar narrative as Trump, where he was appealing to the forgotten areas of the UK. Whereas it was the whole concept of saying, let's redistribute the wealth that's concentrated in London, and let's bring it out to the eastern parts and to the southern parts and the western parts of the UK. So he also came in writing on this. Let's get back to how it's supposed to be energy, specifically with his "Let's get Brexit done" slogan. Slogans in politics, man. Slogans in politics. You cannot win without a good slogan. What was Hillary's slogan?
I don't know, bro.
Exactly.
I'm a female.
Hey, female.
Never had this
you
before.
Didn't see that.
I don't know. Try something new. That's what it should have been. That's what it should have been.
Come on, y'all.
Come on, y'all.
y'all.
Ain't it time 2020, dude. But nah, I really appreciate what you were saying because you really clarified. Like when I was talking about the media, you really got to the heart of it with slogans, with the charisma or lack thereof. Right, we're in this place now where it's not enough to be intelligent. It's not enough to be the best qualified candidate. And at least in the United States, the presidential election always was a popularity contest. But I feel like how important any of the other factors and sliders are is decreasing. Because if you can get people to shout your slogan, you can get them to vote for you. And I don't know if any of the entities, the media, like publishing, anything is stepping in to verify or create some type of concrete metric. So yeah, I guess we have to work not only at being fiercely articulate and being able to explain why we disagree, but also we got to step our swag up. You know what I'm saying? Be likable, be votable for. And in some ways, it's hard for me to admit that we got to do some of those more superficial things or to focus on them. I will, chime in real quick, and then I just want to get to some of the specific things that led to Boris's downfall.
And that's exactly where I'm moving towards too, right? I think the Brits at the moment are upset and they are embarrassed, but something that's very difficult to accept, which the Americans also had a difficulty accepting, is the fact that your leaders are representative of your general public. Your leaders represent you. That is a fact, right? So even if you see Boris Johnson stepping in, he had one of the highest votes going into his presidency 3 years ago, right, into his leadership role. So even then, from the outside looking in, it might look ridiculous, and it might look like he is this very brash, very pseudo racist man who's just riding off of privilege with reckless abandonment. And to which I say, all of y'all are. I'm here. I see it. This is you.
So he's a reflection of folks that live in the UK, is what you're saying?
Except for his son, I would produce him. Man. You Jersey, right? Come on. No, but like the general populace, right? And something interesting that I found while being here and engaging with people and just having open conversation is that the history of the UK is recklessly discarded, bro. Like there's no appreciation of the fact that Britain stole $45 trillion from India over a span of 50 years and then left to separate the country in civil war over in a plan that was drafted over a lunch break. The lawyer that split India did so over a lunch break. A country of over 1 billion people was recklessly split over a lunch break, right? So that is the history of Britain. And even when they had left, the thing that they uphold as, listen, how could you say we did wrong? We brought these guys tea and the trains. Yeah, but that being said, when civil war broke out in India after the UK left, those train stations were areas of mass murders. So $45 trillion is what we're speaking about, right? And this is just the UK. Same thing in Nigeria, same thing in Africa, same thing in the islands, and this has happened throughout, right? So that history is not appreciated by Brits, right? And they get to walk around, they get to live in a reality where that is not affecting them at all. But bro, there's dark-skinned people in India now who can't even shake hands with some people because of how carelessly those lines were split.
Man, I love hearing my brother get into the colonial roots of our current issues, man. It's deep, for real.
All the way colonial.
Yo. All right, now, one podcast name change per episode, for sure.
New rule.
Yeah, we can become the AKA podcast, dude. But it's interesting, like, man, so... yeah, that history has been repeated all over the world. That history continues to affect these countries that are trying to develop and overcome not only this history of violence, but this history of instability, of a lack of infrastructure, of lack of investment. And so that's another great reason to compare what's happening in the UK to our current situation in the US. And I definitely want to continue to do that as well. But in just a second, I just don't want to miss out on some of the reasons, the things that led up to Boris's dismissal, right? So one of the final, the straws that broke the camel's back was my man Chris Pincher. He was a conservative deputy chief whip. These names are ridiculous too, right? When we when we get rid of the chief whip, we got to change some of these names. But after he was accused of groping two men. Boris Johnson was aware of this and still appointed the guy, right? So if we're saying that our leaders are a reflection of our society, then we have to look at what we're allowing to take place. There's also, he was a staunch defender of a conservative lawmaker who violated lobbying rules, which can speak to the ways in which our finances interact with our politics, and often ways that the people being represented don't get to see or have control over. He also, speaking of funds in politics, he also used funds from a conservative party donor in the costly refurbishment of his Downing Street apartment. So there's greed here. There's corruption here. And I think when we look at the U.S. side of the aisle, there are very similar patterns and very similar issues going on. So again, if we talk about our leaders representing us, I feel you, bro. I feel you. We have to take a hard look at ourselves in the mirror, at our values, at our engagement in the political process. But I also want to shout out that to galvanize people towards change, that in a lot of ways our leaders don't represent us anymore. In a lot of ways they still hold on to archaic values and traditions and systems that mean that even when the people's will is expressed, it doesn't get acted upon. I'm thinking specifically in the United States of restrictions on assault rifles, right? How many people have we've covered this story? How many people are saying that they support those restrictions versus the NRA's hold on any ability by lawmakers to actually put in place something restrictive? Moving back to abortions as well, the vast majority of people in the United States think that abortions should be available at least in some cases, especially with regard to rape and incest. And yet we see states even in which people are expressing those wants repeal or eliminate access to abortion. So there's a two-sided coin when you say our representatives reflect who we are as a people. They absolutely should. And if they don't, and if we feel they don't, and if we're seeing them do things that don't reflect our values, then that is our cue not only to vote, but to organize, educate ourselves, and get involved.
In the list of things that my brother has so poignantly described as the reasons for Boris Johnson's downfall, where it began too, is the notorious Partygate. Now, Partygate is one of my absolute favorite uses of excuse from anybody that I've heard. So Partygate, this is obviously during the middle of COVID. We've just watched the Queen bury her late husband, and she's sitting there morose. Shout out to our producer. She's sitting there morose, the Queen in all black, just riddled in grief. This is where we were mid-COVID. No one could even come and console the Queen as she sits in this massive room looking at her recently deceased husband. On the other side of the UK, around a similar timeline, these guys are congregating together to party. In the same time, they're busy telling folks, stay in your houses. Stay in your house. You know, the UK was one of the countries hardest hit economically from COVID. So there was a huge push for people to stay indoors. Yet the leader was out there partying. When confronted whether he indeed went to this party, and Boris Johnson gave one of my favorite excuses ever, he says, well, that's not fair. I didn't know it was going to be a party. I thought it was a work meeting.
He didn't ask who all over there?
he pulled up. He said, I didn't know it was a party, was his excuse. And that is one of my favorite excuses.
Yeah, hey man. Sometimes a kickback turns into a little function, turns into a little situation, turns into a full blown soiree.
Into
It's
into some. It
into
turns
some,
into
some, some.
into a some. And after that, I believe the last line is kick back the some.
That's how it goes sometimes, man. So I feel them. I feel them. But yeah, and it's also crazy when people are listing the reasons for your downfall and have to be reminded. Like they leave stuff off the list. Oh yeah, yeah, he did that too. Oh yeah, Partygate. That's right. It's nuts, man. But my man is out of here, and so what happens now, right? So this was interesting to me too, right? Going back to leaders representing the people. Boris Johnson was the Conservative Party leader. Because he resigned, there's not a new election, there's not new votes, right? The country changes who the prime minister is without a general election. Conservative lawmakers, basically those who have a lot of those folks who resigned, now have the opportunity to throw their hat in the ring to be prime minister. But those that are still there will choose the top candidates, and then the short list goes to a wider membership of the Conservative Party, which is about 200,000 people who pay a standard subscription of like £25, like $30 a year to make the final choice. So the point that I explained that is that group of 200,000 people are not baseline involved, which means that they're not just filling out their taxes, right? They probably are voting in general elections and have taken on whatever the position this is, paying $30 a month. I know not everybody can afford that, but it's an additional way of getting active, and now they're in position to make this decision. So that's just me prompting y'all to think about, where are you getting your information from? What are the channels that you're tapped into that are connected to decision making and change in your local community and beyond, and how can you get a bigger piece of the pie?
Indeed.
Go ahead.
At the background of this, man, I think it's important to highlight the fact that there is a living cost crisis happening in the UK at the moment. We're seeing a lot of strikes from labor unions pulling up. We're seeing specifically the healthcare workers stepping in and really making noise about the inadequacy of their pays, the inability for their payment to be compensated correctly, much like what we had covered in our show prior, because we do that, man. We do that. So to those folks that are doing that, man, we extend our support to y'all. Hold strong. And yeah, man, it's dumb expensive to be in London at the moment. Oh my god.
It's dumb expensive to be anywhere. I wish I could be wherever it ain't expensive. I'll go there. They got my vote. I'm moving there because it's really real out here. Food is expensive, gas is expensive, and yeah, like I'm looking at my heat bill crazy because it's 95 degrees in Chicago. I got the AC cranking. Something got to give, but hold your head. We're gonna get through this. And I love what you said too about getting involved, getting everybody excited, getting hype, because we about to start a movement with this next segment too.
Yo, if you do not know, in the background of everything that is happening at the same time, we've been watching closely and giving a close eye to the situation with WNBA star Britany Griner, who is currently incarcerated in Russia. She has pled guilty to possession of a controlled substance and is now potentially facing 10 years in prison. When we describe that story in that order, it almost seems like the due justice taking its course. But the deeper we dive into the story, we understand that Britany Griner is almost undoubtedly unjustly held at the moment, and the intentions of being able to keep her and what they're throwing on top of her is something that's not new. It's something that happens often to folks in the US, to American folks who are traveling with Russia, especially when there's a political agenda attached to it. Don't get it wrong. Britany Griner right now is being arrested in Russia for a political issue. Yo, I cannot say that enough. The star of women's basketball, the star, LeBron James of women's basketball right now is in a prison in Russia for 0.2 grams of CBD oil and is now facing 10 years.
I love that you said, gotta get it right. So, in the spirit of getting it right, Britany Griner is a 7-time WNBA All-Star, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and the first openly gay athlete to sign an endorsement contract by Nike. So, Britany Griner means a lot to a lot of people, and that's particularly important in the context of this conversation because a lot of the voices in support of Britany are saying that if she was an NBA star, the reaction would be different. The story would have gotten more coverage and more would be done to secure her freedom, right? Like my brother said, she's one of the most dominant players in the WNBA, especially on the offensive end of the court. And this completely ties in, like it's so tied into that issue of the NBA versus the WNBA and that gap in pay. Because the reason she was in Russia was that a lot of players fly overseas to play to supplement their income, right? So this is a very difficult situation that touches on a lot of topics. And my number one thing off the top is, just love for Britany, support for Britany. Being locked up abroad is a terrible situation, no matter where abroad happens to be. And so, yeah, I really feel for her. As somebody who enjoys traveling, as somebody who, will partake of, a variety of different vices from time to time. This is really...
Hey, I'm taking drugs.
Hey, bro. Hey, living my truth is what I'm doing. All right. But as I think about this, I'll be honest and say, and vulnerable and say, that this is really scary, right? Because this just shows what a government that is, you don't even got to go all the way to corruption, but that has a specific agenda, will go to the lengths and how far they will inconvenience a person or put their safety in danger. So, like you said, man, it seems disproportionate to the amount of contraband that they found on a person. They hitting her with large scale drug trafficking for that amount of oil, which seems overblown. And so these are some of the things, like you said, 10-year prison sentence that really make this stand out as, a miscarriage of justice.
Yes. And the quick conversation, and I think we spelled Griner wrong there, Mr. Producer. I think we're missing an E there. So my ODC. What? My OTD, my OTP, my POP will not allow me to move past it.
I think it's right. I think he got it right, actually. I think he got it right.
GREINER?
Nah, I think it's GRI. But we can switch it up to exclamation point instead of a question mark, though. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, y'all. This just in. Zwe is still an idiot. So, with specifically when it comes to an apology.
I love it.
Shout out our YouTube audience, man. Shout out our YouTube audience. Shout out our producer, man. He makes this show exactly what it is. You are right. And with Britany Griner, man, I think the quick conversation for us to be able to run to is to be able to say, hey, she's a black woman and we don't care about black women, etc., etc., etc. That is not an incorrect fact, but it also is quite important to take the full totality of what is happening from a political perspective and incorporate that into what the situation is with Britany Griner. This is not ASAP Rocky who's in Sweden. This is a very different situation from this. As we know, Russia right now is invading Ukraine and is in a full-out war. There are sanctions that are happening. There's a lot of political game that is happening right now. A great book, if you want to really be able to understand the interworkings of how government espionage interwork in the background, is a book called the Economic Hitman. The Economic Hitman. It's a fantastic book, and it speaks about some of these tactics that governments will employ, such as arresting somebody at an airport, throwing false charges on them, and then using them as a bargaining chip for other people that have been arrested. And such is the case with Britany Griner. It's so hot, bro. I had to take my glasses off, bro. It is that hot in the UK at the moment. It is
Every
that
layer.
hot.
Every layer counts.
Dude, I'm about to take this shirt off, and I want to show off these new eyebrows. You know what I'm saying? But
New
that being
eyebrows is crazy, son.
I know, but I just got them too. What you think? Ain't they shapely?
Yo, I don't even know what that means.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman is the name of the book. Incredible book. Shout out our producer again. Who they're trying to swap Britany Griner out for is none other than the Merchant of Death.
Bruh. Let's see.
Yo,
Again. Go ahead.
There's nothing funny about this. But if I'm in prison in Russia and they're like, all right, man, look, they want to do a quick swap with you and somebody else. All right, cool. Who do they want to swap me out with? The Merchant of Death. What? Nigga, they never gonna swap me for that.
For sure. Yeah, it would be hard to justify. It would be hard to justify, you know. She didn't, and that goes back to the amount of contraband that she was caught with. She wasn't kingpinning it, you know what I mean? She wasn't kingpinning it all the way to Russia. It's a very small amount of weed, and probably not worth an international assassin. But we're in this position where, like, I love that you brought the context of what's going on in Russia, right? Because she arrived a week before the invasion of Ukraine. So her detention very quickly became a political bargaining chip. And that's for everybody in the back. You know, if you was reading the story and you took it like just at face value, like she had drugs, they don't like drugs, they hold her for drugs. It gets don't it get a little murky when they say, but you know, you do have Victor, and if you were to let him go, we might be able to free Britany. You know what I mean? It's shady. So definitely dive into that Economic Hitman. So close to home with the Merchant of Death thing. Like, there's a theme here. There's a joke there. I'm trying to tie it together. I love that you brought in ASAP Rocky. We can't, just like Elon Musk, we can never get away from Trump too far, man. People are saying that, using this as an opportunity to say that if Biden wasn't in office, if Trump was in office, he would have been able to get her back like he did with ASAP, like he did with the UCLA basketball team, who was accused of shoplifting, including the youngest Ball. Is it LiAngelo? I think they caught LiAngelo Ball over there trying to steal some sunglasses. Trump hollered at the people in China and got him back. ASAP, on the other hand, said Trump probably made it worse. So he's very good at taking credit, if nothing else. And it's just a reminder, man, of how messy we are politically. What a situation, like, internationally, the stage is mad unstable, especially when you've got egomaniacal people in power like Putin or Trump or Boris Johnson. So this story, in so many ways, just like really hit home with me and was a reminder how much stuff is messed up and how quickly things can go left. So be careful. Be careful when you're traveling. Be careful with how you're moving. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what other points you wanted to make. I was going to give people a little PSA about moving with weed, because it's,
and again,
you gotta know
it
your
wasn't
rules.
weed. It was CBD oil. It was CBD oil. But please, Miles, share on our very public platform, how do you move drugs internationally?
Yeah, small YU. How do you out there, or anyone? And it's not really, and I don't want to give you a step-by-step guide on moving drugs internationally, but for anybody out there, I would like to just, especially for our U.S. listeners, right, where weed is becoming legal, right, and you might not be sure what you're allowed to do or how you're allowed to move around with it. First of all, you can't fly state to state, even between states where weed is legal in both states, because weed is still governed by federal law, which means that the interstate transportation of it is a crime in itself. So don't bring weed from one state to any other state. Don't do that. And don't say that you got your weed from another state, because you can't do that. All right? That's rule number one. Rule number 2. TSA's primary concern is not marijuana. You can go on the TSA website and they say that they do not look for illegal drugs, period, right? But if that dog catch you or that machine catch you, they have to report it to law enforcement. So if you're moving through the airport, know that TSA, they not trying to catch you, but if you get caught and if that dog, bark at you, it's on you. They have to report it to the police, and it's up to the police what they do. So you're going to end up dealing with the police anyway. It ain't going to be you got to throw this away. Nah, they got to report it, right?
You good, but it can go through.
You know what I'm saying?
That's not how it goes down.
And then the last thing I'll add is that it don't matter if you have a medical marijuana license. The TSA finds the weed, they contact the police. They do not have any ability or any inclination to verify your medical, your license. So can't bring weed nowhere, can't bring it across state lines. And yeah, at the risk of being accused of telling people how to move drugs across internationally, man, this podcast is about information. It's about people. And so people like weed, man, it's being legalized across the state. So if you just be safe with it, that's all I'm saying.
Even CBD oil, because that's what she was caught with, is a CBD vape. So it wasn't even like the actual plant itself. It was just the oil, and that's what she's being charged with. So again, listen, if you're traveling through Dubai and you're a person of color, they're gonna get all up in that bag. Okay, I'm telling you this as from my experience. There's some countries that you can travel through and maybe you might be able to hide a little something, or maybe forgotten a little something, and you can sneak it through. Listen, if you're going through the Dubai International Airport and you're a person of color, they're getting up in that bag. If you're going through not Amsterdam Airport, if you're going through Frankfurt Airport, they're getting all up in that bag. If you're going through pretty much any place that might not like people of color, they're getting all up in that bag. And when I say all up in that bag, bro, I'm talking all up in that bag. So move wisely, move carefully, and yeah, man, stay informed.
Big facts. You know, this is really unfair, really unjust, really messed up what's happening to Britany. But if we can take anything from it, take it as a teachable moment, that it's just not worth it, that you never know how far left the situation can go. Zoe was pointing out a whole bunch of airports. I think the bottom line is you can't take it with you internationally. Here in the U.S., you can have CBD that has no more than 0.3% THC, but you got to decide, make your own decision about how comfortable you are moving around. Yeah, thumbs down, man. Boo. Boo. But yeah, teachable moment, and free Britany Griner, yo.
I don't even like saying that's a teachable moment, but I do agree. Free Britany Griner is definitely going to change the way I move through airports. It's summertime, so people are traveling and people are moving about. Please be safe, y'all. Please be safe. If you are traveling, please understand that there are rules and regulations in some places. Be knowledgeable of those things and just get your drugs the old school way, man. Walk around, look for white folks with dreadlocks, ask them for some, and they're going to probably have it.
You giving them gems. You know a little something too. See, it ain't just me, yo. It ain't just me. But yeah, it's that's some messy situation. I had one more thing I wanted to say. Oh yeah, shout out to the WNBA, man. You know, I started this off by saying that a lot of people are saying that this would be handled differently if it was an NBA player, and maybe that's true. And so I want to focus on the positivity of saying that the WNBA is lit. Actually, my dad and my granddad and my mom just went to a Sky game. You know what I'm saying? WNBA champions, Chicago. You already know what it is. But they had a really good time there. I was watching some WNBA over the July 4th weekend, and I haven't been a watcher up until now. So that more media focus, the more that it's spoken about, the more that these names become household names, and the more that, you know, that pressure can be applied in a real way. So if you are upset and you want to support Britany, support the WNBA, keep following this story, and that's how we're going to keep it moving. We'll keep you updated all the way live. Does this thing, man. Yeah. Man, we've had a couple weeks of reviewing some live house favorites, you know. from K Dot to Boogie, and now Mr. Lyrical Miracle himself, my original favorite rapper, Lupe Fiasco, Drill Music in Zion. What you think?
Lupe the Fiasco.blogspot.com. Yo, man, that that's so
Oh
that's
man,
so
we old school with it. Yeah, we from the 1st and 15th days. You know what I'm saying? The free Chili Mac days. You know.
yes, yes, yes. We really are, man. And so it's Lupe Fiasco, Chicago artist. Someone that Miles, you draw a significant amount of influence, man. People see you now. You Gotham City's prodigy. You're an activist. You're an esteemed leader of community organizing in Chicago. But what people don't know is that before this, we had Hood Dreams too, and Miles was supposed to get us out by his rap skills, and you always remind him. You did draw very heavily from Lupe, and I think when we first met almost over a decade ago as friends, we bonded over our shared passion for Lupe's music, diving deep into the mixtape series, like you're saying, the 1st and 15th. And so we've had quite a long journey with Lupe. Obviously, food and liquor, having that come out, having his breakout single be not Daydream, being it is Daydream was his breakout single, I believe. And since then we've had this very interesting trajectory of Lupe's career, almost encompassing every element that comes with being a rap star and a successful rapper, going through an underground success and then going into popular status and then dropping albums that people don't necessarily care too much for, that is extremely commercial. And now we're entering into this new phase. And when I think about mature hip hop, it's hard not to appreciate Lupe at the forefront of that.
No doubt, no doubt. Mature hip hop, and then really pushing hip hop and showing hip hop as an art form. Um, Me and Lupe, like I know the dude. He actually did grow up in a house down the street from my older brother's crib. I used to always look out to hope I would see him whenever I was over at Daniel's house, man. Shout out to Dan. But I've been listening to Lupe for a long time. And like you said, one of the reasons that I've always really appreciated his music, and he's been, at the forefront of my mind, an icon in terms of hip hop, is because his music shows how much thought you can convey through hip hop, right? How many different meanings there can be for a bar, how many different ways there can be to interpret it, how many different ways you can structure a song or a rhyme scheme or incorporate a concept into your music. Lupe's done it a million different ways, from songs like Science Project and Switch to songs like Mural, which is an even more recent display of his lyrical ability. To even some of the joints on this, right? Kiosk is a dope concept. So I'm just really appreciative to have more boundary pushing music from Lupe, more hip hop maturity, as my brother said, and just evidence that the genre and its artists can grow into something really, really, really beautiful. Man, there's a lot of standouts on this, but Autobotto is the one that has stuck in my head. Autobotto, Kiosk. There's a few. Seattle. This is a really great project, and for him to be able to put out something that is deep and relatable this late in his career shows that there's no time limit on rappers and their ability.
And when you look at the intention behind this, right? The name might throw you off a bit, thinking that it might be an older rapper taking the drill sound, which we see happen often. It's quite the opposite of that, and I think that speaks towards his intentionality behind so much of his music. The same thing with Miss Mural. Miss Mural is a trilogy in the Mural trilogy. So you have Mural, then you have Mural Junior, and then you have Miss Mural, right? So this is the trilogy. This man has a trilogy of these very intricately put songs that take on a wide range of themes with a very meticulous skill set in order to prove it. If you have not heard Mural, stop this right now. I don't care what you like. I don't care what music you're into. I don't care if you're into Taylor Swift or whatever. Go listen to Mural, because that is one of the best hip hop songs that you'll hear in terms of what it seems like to be able to rap in a way that nobody can rap, and that's what Mural is. And so to see him have that intention carry across, I think is super dope.
No
Same thing with
doubt.
Kiosk. Yeah, same thing with Kiosk. It's like take a religious take, taking a religious take on music. It's I'm liking the fact that rap can grow past just the young music. I like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to your point about the title, yeah, I was, because Lupe can do so many different things, right? Part of me did expect to hear at least a little bit more of a drill sound and him showing, him showcasing his lyrical ability over that. And that's not really what we got. I think drill in this context, I mean, it's still talking about, I think, drill music and that culture of hip hop and that pocket that's really has a high proximity to violence in the culture and what it means, right? And it was tough for me to figure out whether Zion was kind of the world, or like the hip hop, or specifically Chicago. And I think you can interpret it like any great art in a variety of different ways. But what I really pulled from this, and he lays it out beautifully on one of the songs, where the entire verse is just rappers die too much, right? Or rappers get shot too much. One of those, something to that effect. And that's just the whole verse, right? And I think that really just brings home what he was trying to do with this project, was to say that you can create something beautiful, and we have with hip hop, and we also have to be conscious of all the ways in which it grows and grows with it. Otherwise, it'll overgrow and suffocate us, right? Beyond our control. This whole album was recorded in 3 days, 72 hours, and that blows my mind.
What? That's
Yeah,
insane. That's
yeah,
insane.
yeah. So I gotta
Incredible.
the part of me that still has a competitive rapper, that part of me is like, he had to have it written. He had to have a lot of it written beforehand, the concept together, and then just went in the studio with Soundtrack, who I believe produced the whole thing. It was on the boards for the majority of it. But yeah, man, that's an incredible. It's incredible, just like tidbit about this album. I don't really care how long it takes you to make great art if it's great art, but Lupe just again showing that he's different. He's an alien in this game, and so 15 years later, you know what I mean? I'm still proud to say that Lupe is one of my favorite artists in hip hop, and this is one of my favorite albums by him in a good minute. So I'm real happy with this one.
Which says a lot, because he really has been on a rather consistent run since putting out before Tetsuo Youth, when he put out since putting out Lasers, because since Lasers people weren't necessarily feeling that too much, but Tetsuo and Youth came out, and that was very, very solid. The Drogas Lights was also really dope. And then coming to this, how I took drill music in Zion, if I'm being interpretive of the cover art and the content that he speaks of. It's the juxtaposition of the setting, the juxtaposition of the if Zion is the standard, the norm, the perfect resemblance, then the drill music would be what is piercing through that and offending it. And that's what I look at when I see this art cover, this album art as well. You have this almost pristine yellow background with a very sharp interjection of it, right? Which could be the drill music element. And it's the same thing with Miss Mural. Miss Mural is telling the story of hip hop as being a hip hop artist, but taken from the points of a painter, right? So taking this one concept of being a painter, which is the Zion elements of it, and then injecting the harsh realities of what it takes to be a hip hop artist into it, all culminating to the zenith of the story, where he says, I'll just burn my art down, I'll just burn it down, so that seems to be a theme that's proliferated throughout this album. And the reason I be pulling out words like juxtaposition, proliferated, and zenith is because this is the type of intention that this brother has when he puts this type of music together. So we want to be intentional too in being able to respect how valuable it is, man. So to me, this might not be my This might not be an album that I'm rinsing back and forth like that ignorant boogie album, but it is an album that I thoroughly appreciate, and a hip hop album that I'd be happy to press play with in front of anybody, my family, my kid. This is that type of hip hop.
No doubt, man. No doubt. And what you just said, like being proud to play this in front of everybody. When I was in the 5th grade, it was my first year in school in the suburbs of Chicago, right? Public school, suburbs, mad white. And I am a hip hop loving, pants sagging, afro having black kid, right? And
To this day.
And I'm talking to my music teacher, the music instructor, specifically the percussion instructor. And he is adamant that hip hop is not real music, that it can't, convey certain messages or doesn't. And I put together, a little collection of songs, some Nas, some KRS-One, some, I think maybe even some Pac, and Lupe. Conflict Diamonds by Lupe Fiasco was one of the songs. And that was the song that my man told me a couple weeks later. We listened to it in the class, and he was like, yeah, all right, maybe you might have a point. But a couple years later, actually, when my little brother was going to the school and I was back for some play or performance, percussion instructor was there, pulled me to the side and was like, hey, man, you really changed my perspective on music with those songs, specifically that Lupe Fiasco, that Conflict Diamonds. I'm a big fan of Lupe, and so that's from what you showed me. And for Lupe to be, the catalyst for that change and the one that won him over, I think really speaks to his ability and what he contributes to hip hop. So all that to say, don't sleep on Chicago, man. Chicago is kind of in the influence in terms of both like mainstream music and how drill music has taken over mainstream, but also some of the most incredible artists we've ever had have come from Chicago. So don't sleep on the best coast, that Midwest coast. And drill music in Zion gets a 4 out of 5 from me.
Oh, I was gonna tell you to hold on. I wanted to see what our producer had given drill music in Zion. Let's see what our producer is gonna give. Producer, what's your score, if you don't mind? Let's see. And if we had a drum roll here, that would be absolutely perfect. I wonder if we can put it in the drum roll.
I was gonna say brrr, but that's something else with drum music.
Yeah, yo, 4.5 out of 5. Interesting. Producer gives a 4.5 out of 5. That's interesting. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
You cannot sleep on Chicago, man. Beyonce's new song just dropped. It's mad housey. House music came from Chicago, right? Like there's an argument to be made that we are gaining an influence and if you really look at the broad spectrum of what Chicago has contributed, especially since like the 90s, we up there West Coast, we up there East Coast. So yeah, a little hometown love, baby.
Hey, man. You know what it is. Shout out to absolutely everybody for rocking with us this far. This is y'all's favorite part of the show. We know this is y'all favorite part of the show. So be sure to keep letting us know what other things you want us to review. Drop it in the comment section. SoundCloud audience, we see y'all. We see y'all over there. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. We're growing this thing brick by brick because we know.
Oh, yeah, we know. You could be anywhere in the world, doing anything in the world, with anyone in the world, but you here rocking with us. And we appreciate that so much, that you would join us for the celebration of celebrating, the celebration of life, the celebration of how good it feels to be a Chicagoan. Don't it feel good, way?
Hey, man. Got it on your background.
Big facts. You are honorary Chicagoan, man, just like I'm a honorary Josie man, and and y'all are honorary, all that too. Make sure that you eat something delicious, hug somebody you love, comment, tell us your favorite Lupe song or your favorite joint from the album. Like, subscribe, and get on out of here. Gone. Peace. Water. We gone.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all the way live though?